Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today, as always, I'm extremely excited because we've got another amazing guest for you. So this guest today, he perfectly fits the narrative of this podcast because he's, as you will learn in a second or two, he's had an extraordinary journey from being made redundant. He's someone that if I get down to my last $100 or £100, this is the guy that we need to call because he's achieved so much from that moment, and we're going to cascade into that in a minute. So a very, very, very warm welcome to my perfect failure, Matt Shoup. How are you, Matt?
Oh, I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm delighted. I was really nervous at the end because I just wanted to get this.
You didn't have to sing the song. You didn't have to sing the song that we talked
exactly.
about.
I had that fear as I was about to kind of pronounce it. So Matt, I am extremely excited to have you on the podcast today because when we connected, I was like, this guy's story really fits the narrative of why I put the podcast together. And you know, we'll get into that in a second, and I'll let you tell your story, and I'll interject periodically. But I love your journey from that entrepreneurial instinct that you had. I believe you had that at an early age, and it appears that the situation that you had, which we'll get into in a moment, it really brought you full fold into your entrepreneurial sort of instinct. So your entrepreneurial journey started at a young age. Maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah, it started at 10 years old. So growing up, I grew up in New Jersey until I was 10. And then my family and we moved from the East Coast of the United States out to Colorado, just north of Denver. So it was definitely a change in culture, change in environment. And you know what I always tell people is on paper, if you go back and look at the 10-year-old Matt and what I had seen, experienced, and been through, along with all of the other people that I had been through that with, the crew and group of kids that I ran around with, most of them are dead in prison or disappeared.
Really?
So to be standing here right at 42, looking back 32 years and going down the list. Yeah, seriously. My life and where I'm at was a function of the people I've decided to spend time with and the decisions I've made with those people journeying through life.
Yeah.
And growing up, I got bullied a lot. So one of my earliest memories, and they weren't great. Like I have great ones, but I also have a lot of painful ones. It was getting bullied a lot growing up. So I didn't fit in. I wasn't good at sports. I wasn't the good looking kid. I wasn't the popular kid. I was kind of nervous, kind of quiet. Big buck teeth, had headgear, and I was an easy target. So growing up, I always was looking over my shoulder for that next thing to happen. Yeah. And the way business came in is like I'd get beat up on the playground, beat up in other places in life. But then we moved to Colorado and I wanted a boom box. If you remember the compact disc players, you had like 18D batteries. Like people, like my kids don't know what a boom box is. And I asked my parents for $200 and they said, no, you've got to find out a way to make your own money. We're not going to give you that kind of money. So I said, okay. I was a creative kid. So along with getting bullied, I was very creative and very smart. So I'd finish my schoolwork early and then I'd go get in trouble. They didn't give me enough to do. So I always had this creativity and I love to tell stories and I always had a lot of ideas and I was just told, hey, sit down, shut up. You're going to get in trouble again. And that was my environment. So my parents say, go find a way to make your own money. And they left me with that sentence. And I said, so I'm thinking to myself, looking back, so now I can go do whatever I want to find a way to make money. And I did. So I grabbed their lawnmower, went down the street, knocked on doors and I cut grass, and I made $200. I think I made $2,000 that summer.
How much?
And for me,
How much?
probably $2,000. I just cut grass also. I didn't have any friends. Nobody wanted to hang out with me. Right. So it's like,
that's crazy. At 10.
Yeah. Yeah. I just walked down
Wow.
the street. I mean, the two doors down was this sweet little old lady knocked on the door. Hey, will you pay me $15, $20 to cut your grass? And yeah. If you do a good job, I'll give you a tip. So yeah, I made $20, $25. I'd go do a couple of those a day and just keep after it. But the lesson within that was the first time in life, one of the first things that gave me confidence, certainty, security, validation, acceptance, love, significance, right? So these are the foundational human needs that every human has. And as I was out in my environment, I said the mean streets of New Jersey, right? Like it was a different environment. And I wasn't getting that anywhere else. I was a scared little easy target getting bullied. But you wouldn't beat me in business. You beat me up on the playground. But when I knocked on that door and I asked for your money and I had something to offer, it's just a different kind of Matt showed up. So to answer that question you initially asked, I think there was an innate creativity that I had that then aligned with my desire to just find something to give me something I wanted, which was the money. And then, from there I go, well, I love this business thing. And I would get into that zone. Lawn mowing turned to snow shoveling, peddling candy out of my middle school locker. And then I got in trouble for that. So the world's response to that was, hey, good job. Like, hey, good job. But don't do it too much and don't do it at school. And then I would even go sell magazine subscriptions for the school contest, right? And then I'd win the top prize. And then I'd go make sure a couple of my friends that wanted to come to the pizza party had enough sales. So I'd go sell a couple under their name.
Really?
Right. So like, I just love sales and marketing. And again, I was rewarded for it. But then as I continued in my journey, it created almost an unhealthy obsession with this need for significance recognition. And then I became very obsessed with making money. And we'll talk more about that. So when we get into, some of the biggest business failures or lessons that came with my financial success in my 20s, it all stemmed back from that first decade of life when I was just a scared little boy that just needed somebody to love me and say I was going to be okay. And I found that in business.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's phenomenal. The various things that you did at that age. And I was thinking a number of thoughts spring to mind. One of which is I'm seeing my two nephews this weekend. I'm going to be saying to them, if you want to make a bit of pocket money, maybe you can borrow your dad's lawnmower and maybe speak to the neighbors and as you can see whether you can cut their lawn. So your journey started then into the entrepreneurial spirit, and clearly you felt at home there and it gave you confidence. Did that kind of interfere with, from that moment where you got that validation, you got that confidence, did that become almost like a drug where you wanted that because you weren't getting it anywhere else?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you look at, looking at that story, I think there's always two sides to the story, two sides to the coin. I wouldn't trade that for anything. I mean, that experience, that first door that I knocked at 10 years old to that little old lady that said, yes, here's money, right? That exchange that happened, it started that journey. But yeah, moving forward down with business, that definitely created some other things where it wasn't healthy. It wasn't good, and it played out. But, looking back, I just look at my first 10 years of life. It was bad foundation, bad soil, bad environment. We moved, and then I discovered this passion that I really ran with, but I also didn't have the other tools. One of the things that I love with what I do right now. So we have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy, and I'm a black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu professor, and I love teaching kids. What I tell these kids is, I used to say, you're not going to go through what I went through if you train Jiu-Jitsu. And that's not true. I was mistaken in saying that. You're going to confront and experience the same confrontations that I had back in the 80s and 90s. But now you're going to have the tools I didn't have to handle those things more confidently and more certainly. So I look at that now, but back when I was, my teens going into my 20s, it was this, right, to the world. I got something to prove because I was so hurt, so betrayed. So I'm going to go make $1 million and I'm going to build this empire. And at the end of the day, I still wasn't really getting what I needed, which was that validation. So I hope that answers the question. I know I kind of shared some different examples, but it was a blessing and a curse. And I think for anybody exploring their story and peeling those layers back to understand, like, business was a dopamine rush. You asked that initial question. It's like, boom, you get that. And it was like a drug. So I remember I'm counting my money. But I would have been counting my money selling drugs in New Jersey. Like, I would have been selling drugs in New Jersey if I stayed there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it almost feels like it was great that you found the entrepreneurial spirit and you're able to earn money, which most, to be honest, I was going to say most kids do, but at the age of 10, that is, most kids at the age of 10 aren't thinking. I could be wrong. I can't, it's so long ago since I was 10, but we want validation from our friends. But the idea of actually mowing lawns, I'm thinking to myself, at 10, I probably wouldn't have wanted to mow a lawn because I didn't want to do any work. Yeah. But what you were getting from that, you were getting money, you were getting validation. And to be fair, if somebody offered me £10 or £5, whatever it is, to mow lawn, I think I would have done because I would have thought about, because at that point I would just understand the concept of money and actually what I could do with that money. And I guess my last point on that is it's lovely that you were able to find your spirit there, but it was almost replacing something. So there was something missing. So the relationships that you potentially didn't have, because there were, kids bully, I was around that when I was a kid, you have to see that. And kids can be incredibly, we develop hopefully into well-rounded individuals, but when we are at that delicate age, we can be quite mean to one another. So there was clearly that there was, I believe there was a little bit of replacement going on there as well. And then as a child, it's probably difficult to articulate that or process that.
Yeah. And looking at it now, right, looking back and reflecting back and analyzing my story, I can see now very clearly at 42 what it was at 10. But I wasn't learning healthy ways back then. And you're right, I didn't know. That's just how I thought life was. That's what I was experiencing. But I didn't have examples of healthy, positive communication and interaction between people. It was just, okay, there's a pecking order. And I mean, again, it's New Jersey in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, that's just kind of how it was to a certain degree, is, you know where you stand there, and here's where it was. And it's unfortunate. People were very direct. They told you they like you or don't like you and where you was. And I caused trouble. So they're like, you shut the F up. Good example. Like, I was in 3rd grade and I said something very, very much not kind to a 3rd grade girl. And she goes, don't ever say that to me again, or my parents are going to come in here and deal with you. And then I said it to her again. I said, oh yeah. And I said it to her again. Mom comes in, and this was totally permitted back in this time, in this environment. She came into the class. Teacher saw her come into the class. I need to talk to Matt Shoup right there. Teacher goes, okay. She pulls me into the coat cubby closet, grabs me by the shirt, puts me up against the wall. And she said, you ever, effing say anything to her again, I'm going to come back with Dad. I'm going to whoop your ass. And I'm like, note taken. That's just how things were dealt with back then. And as a parent now, I go, I've wanted to say that and do that, as I've seen my kids getting hurt. But that was just what I grew up in. Yeah. And again, that's what I experienced. So I go, that's how you handle a situation. That's how you handle, if somebody, I viewed, hey, I kind of attacked this girl verbally and her family came to protect her. That is what provision and protection looks like. So just learned things from the environment that weren't healthy, and definitely didn't work for me in business, life, leadership, or family as I got into my 20s and 30s and stand here today. Yeah.
So I guess we'll get into that evolution in a second, but clearly there was significant evolution that went on. So New Jersey, and parents decide we want to move. So you move to somewhere, I guess, I don't know. Well, I'm from the UK, so I don't know America like you, but I'm imagining that Colorado is very different from New Jersey. So I guess there was another process of adaptation when you arrived in Colorado, meeting new children, which is always difficult when we're 10. You know, kids have their groups, their clusters of friends, then we've got to go in and try and fit in somewhere. It must have been quite difficult as well. Even more difficult if we've experienced bullying, because maybe our confidence isn't where we would like it to be.
Yeah, it was. So the quick flyover, New Jersey, New York, East Coast, United States, very fast pace, stereotypically very aggressive, assertive, and just people say what they think, and they don't ask how your day's going. They just say, hey, get out of my way. That's how they drive. It's how they do everything. You go out to Colorado and everybody's smiling and holding the door and, hey, how are you? And my family's like, I don't like you. Like, I don't like you. Shut your mouth. Right. That's what we dealt with. And why is everybody smiling and nice? And almost it felt like this fake friendliness in the open spaces. So it was just a totally different world. There was that culture shock. And then, everything you just said, I definitely agree with, and would ditto that, is just trying to figure out life, and was really uprooted from what I knew and put into a new situation and had to figure it out. And within that transition, that's when the business kicked in. So I leaned into business, and then kind of my middle high school years, I had a couple of hourly jobs where I just learned the value of just working hard. And whatever environment I got into, I ended up working my way up to the top of that environment. I worked at a Chinese restaurant, a Subway sandwich shop, and a sneaker store. And I got to the point where, literally I'm 12, 13 years old, bussing tables at a Chinese restaurant. But other than the cooking, because I didn't know how to cook the food.
That's incredible.
They knew they could leave me there, and I could open that place up, shut it down, figure it out.
At 12.
At 12, and then 14, 15 at the Subway. They'd leave me there. I'd open it up, shut it down, do the register, do the till, do the bank. I mean, I was running these things. So looking back, these people saw this leadership in me, and I was just working hard, and realizing that I don't do anything half-assed. I go all the way in and all the way to the top.
Did your parents realize that this guy is different in terms of his work? A 12-year-old working, the ability to go into a restaurant as an employee, work, get paid, and actually become an important cog within their organization, and then take that from the restaurant to Subway, and then on and on. Your parents must have been, wow, this guy is something else.
No, I mean, I remember, because I didn't have, obviously, till you get a driver's license, it was, hey, can you drive me to the bulk, Costco to buy all the candy? Can you drive? And then they were the ones driving me there. So they saw that, and they were obviously part of facilitating, allowing me to get to these places. Right. So absolutely. And it was just, again, it was what I leaned into. It was my passion. So I don't recall a lot sitting down saying, hey, mom and dad, I really love this. And they're like, that's great. We see that you really love this. It was just like going to work, and they go, great, we'll take you to work. I mean, we didn't have these, monumental around the dinner table conversations. I was gone working a lot, and then came back, and, my dad was working. He was out working a job, and then he had a fish business. He loved a particular kind of fish. So he would buy them from dealers and then wholesale them to the stores. So I saw that growing up. But I mean, that was the environment. That was the work environment. We didn't really talk about it. We just did it.
Yeah. What I'm thinking about, that classic scene where we all think about it, when everybody gets home after a day. We've all been out doing whatever we've been doing for the day. Parents come home. How was work? Children come home. How was school? They must have been confused what to ask you about. How was work and how was school?
Yeah.
It's like, where do we go here?
School, and school was just something that I did. And one of the things I'm certified in, it's part of my leadership program, is personality and behavior profiling, understanding how and why people behave and what drives them. And one of my drivers is I'm very low theoretical. So I don't need a lot of information for information's sake. So I'll step into an environment and I say, what's the most efficient way to create this outcome? So for school, I didn't care about learning. I just said, what is the quickest way? This is what I did to get the A in the class, doing the least amount of work possible, so I can go to work and make money. So I ran straight A's, but it wasn't because I was so excited about learning. There's a couple things I was real passionate about. Spanish came very natural to me, and that led into, what we just talked about with everything I'm doing in Spain. But yeah, school is just kind of went to school, did the thing, and then I went to college because that's what everybody else did at that time too. I didn't really know what I wanted to do leading into college academically. It's just what everybody did, and I was told, well, that's what everybody does. Looking back, I wouldn't have traded that for the world, because I had some things that I learned in college outside the classroom, 3 huge things that changed my life. None of them had anything to do with the diploma that I paid $80,000 for.
Okay.
So I met my wife, I found Spain, I found Jesus in college. Like, those experiences while in the college environment shaped and shifted my life. But the degree, like, I don't know where my degree is. It's in the bottom of a box. I think I lost it when I moved. I think it got thrown away when I moved.
Yeah, I was listening to something the other day with, I think it's Kevin Kelly, who's the founder of Wired, and he was talking something kind of similar about college, university, and stuff. So I think he was talking around the idea. There's some correlation around, his kids, if they want to go university, don't have to, just go out, enjoy life, make your mistakes young, because invariably some of those mistakes that we make are the catalyst of what's going to drive us in the future.
Yeah.
So I listened to that a few days ago, and it just resonated with what you've been discussing. So college, meet your wife, discover Spain, religions, all this wonderful stuff happens.
Yeah.
Then you get a job. Well, I don't know that. I don't know what the sequence is, but at some point you've got the job, and stuff happens where you find that. Were you fired? What? Maybe you can expand upon what happened.
No, there's a transition that kind of leads into that I didn't really share in the sexy bio, right? That's on the website. So as I'm working into college, my college summer job was going to be working at this shoe store, and I'm in a Monday morning biology class, 8 a.m. class, and a guy walks into my class and says, "Hey, I'm here with a company offering a summer internship," and he said, "Do you want to learn about business, marketing, sales, making money, and getting to use somebody else's money? And what do you think I'm going to say?" Right? We just talked for 20 minutes. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. I signed that card. And then the guy says, he goes, "Oh, and as long as you work your butt off and do what we show you, you're guaranteed to make $2,500 in the summer." So back then, he goes, "That's what you're going to make delivering pizzas, selling shoes." And he goes, "But I made 23,000. And he does one of these. I saw what he was doing back then. Yeah. And I look at this guy and I'm like, well, if you can make 23,000, I can make 43,000. Yeah. Just because I was very competitive in that sense. So I filled the card out. 2 months later, I'm working with a college painting company. So they came in and taught us how to run residential paint contracting businesses, repainting homes in the spring and summer. So there's a couple of national organizations and franchises. And so for 4 years in college, I worked with them, honing and really reigniting my entrepreneurial passion. And I made a bunch of money. So as I've talked about all this money that I've made, right, mowing lawns, I didn't learn that if you spend more than you make, that's not good. So I was spending it faster than I was making it, which is that's a whole nother podcast. Yeah. But I worked for them for 4 years. And I said, painting's not a very sexy business. I was very concerned with the optics of what I was doing and how people would perceive me. I go, I'm going to go get into a suit and tie mortgage banking job. I met a guy that was making tons of money doing mortgages. And he, had me jump into his nice car one day and was depositing his rental checks for his rentals. And, he hooked, line, and sinkered me. So it's 2005 and I'm working in the mortgage business thinking that's the next thing. And I'm hating life. I'm being told, just like school, right? What to do, when to do it, how many calls to make. And that doesn't work for me. So I'm plotting my escape. And March 2005, a new bank president comes in and he calls me in the office and he says, "Hey," he didn't say "nice to meet you." I'd never met the guy. He's sitting in a desk. I walk in, he says, "Put all your shit in a box and get out. You're fired." That was first thing he said. Second thing he said was very condescendingly, he leans back in the chair and he cinches his tie up. And he goes, "Maybe you should go back and do that painting thing."
Really?
But he said, yeah, and threw me out. So literally all my shit in a box, standing in a parking lot of a bank in Windsor, Colorado, $170,000 in debt, recently married, upside down house, car payment, 2 shiny degrees. I have this business passion, and I'm standing here going, my first thought is, what do I tell Emily when I get home?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm the guy, like I'm the breadwinner.
Yeah.
She's working, part-time, paying bills, but I'm the guy. So I had a 12-minute drive home, and I decided before I stepped into that parking lot and into my car, not working for anybody again.
Okay.
I'm the guy. I'm the business guy. And I'm definitely not going to work for somebody like that guy again. And I'm going to become a millionaire. So again, this is where that unhealthy,
That's incredible.
It was this F you to the world, right? Here's another person that I got betrayed by. So I ran a betrayal program for a long time.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I'm so inspired by what you're able to come up with in 12 minutes before you got home to speak to your wife, speak to your partner. Are you impressed with that? First and foremost, are you impressed with the fact that you were able, you had all this stuff going on, your idiot boss who just came into the business, no people
Chad.
skills,
Hey, Chad. Hope you're listening to this, right?
In terms of how to, make somebody redundant, no proper conversation, no professionalism. So you have to deal with that, made redundant. Then you've got, the financial stuff going on, and you've got to go and tell your partner. Then you've got to think about what next. And you know that it's 12 minutes to get home. But in that 12 minutes, you're able to formulate an idea, things that you knew that you didn't want to do again.
Mm-hmm.
And, so are you impressed with that? Are you impressed with yourself? Sorry.
I am. So I'll give you the short answer is yes. And then the backstory is that, I was married the summer of 2004, leading into marriage with Emily, my college sweetheart. We did, pre-marriage counseling. I remember sitting down with the pastor, and that discussion was, what is the vision for your marriage? And it involved having a business and owning a business.
Okay.
So when I'm in this job, I'm totally pursuing the money that I thought was there, but the job was awful. So I was already in the process, Paul, of, hey, I'm not going to stay at this bank, but I'm going to do it on my own terms. So part of my upbringing is, I'm a control freak because I was in an environment where there wasn't a lot of it. So I was going to do it on my terms. So just the fact that this guy did it, that really pissed me off. And my default emotion was anger. So in that 12 minutes, I think my response to things, and I think this may be a general stereotypical male response, is like, wife or partner comes to you, hey, I had a bad day, and she just wants you to hear her. And what are you doing? Well, here's the solution. Here's what you need to do. So my brain goes to, what do I do? What do I say? So I didn't call my wife. I jumped in the car and I said, screw you, Chad. I'm going to make $1 million. All I know how to do is run paint crews. So I called one of my painters, who told me when I got into banking, he goes, that's not going to work out real well. They're probably going to fire you. And if they do, give me a call and I'll be ready to come swing the brush. So I called him and I said, hey, what are you doing? He goes, nothing. What are you doing? He goes, you shouldn't be calling me. Aren't you supposed to be at the bank? I said, nah, well, they just fired me. And we laughed together. And I just told him, I said, give me a month and I'm going to fill up your summer with paint jobs. So I called a couple of the crews that I knew. So before I got home, I had the answer. I said, hey, honey, I'm home. She goes, you're home early. You get an early lunch. I said, I got a permanent lunch. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, we're going to do this business thing. And I ate lunch and then I went out and started knocking on doors. So yes, I'm impressed with so that's just my natural wiring, just because of the environment that I was in. So there's chaos and I need to make a decision. Yeah. I grew up and felt like very much, I actually learned this through counseling, therapy, and just personal development work, as I grew up in a war zone where I didn't know where the landmines were. So I'm very decisive and I'm very ready to take action when something comes and confronts me. So that was just kind of another thing. Made the call and got to work.
It's phenomenal, to me, because I don't think I'd be able to formulate a plan of action in 12 minutes. So you've set a high bar for me. So I'll be working on that after. But
if I can interrupt, because I just know the next thing I'm going to do.
Okay.
So I didn't have this, I'm standing here, first year we did $500,000 worth of business, life to date of the painting company, $35-40 million. I wasn't sitting there on that 12-minute drive, like $40 million in 20 years.
Yeah.
I just said, I need $2,800 in 28 days. That was my step. So what do I need to do? So, and I think this is where I don't want to confuse listeners, right? Well, this Matt guy, I didn't have it figured out. I needed 2,800 in 28 days. So I didn't get my house taken or have that process start.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do? I was knocking on doors before I took the $100 and went to the bank. Like that was the formality. I didn't technically, I need to look back. I don't think I opened the bank account until somebody actually wrote the check to the business that I hadn't opened the bank. So I just went out and I was creating before I had, but no, I didn't have a plan. I was about to drown and I needed to keep my head above water. And then once I did, I had some space to go, okay, what's the next 30 days look like? Because we made more than 2,800 in 28 days. We had a little cushion, right? We had a little, got a little above. So then it's like, what is the next 30? Now, what's the rest of the year look like? Okay, now what do the next 2 years look like? And that's where we went from there.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking, I'm going back to when you were 10, because that lawnmower business, what you're doing at 10, to me, that was almost pivotal to that moment for your ability to, the redundancy happened and you thought quickly, okay, let's get back into the painting business. I know this business. I've got contacts here.
Yeah.
I know how to knock on doors. I've been doing it since I was 10. I know how to do this.
So I'm going to go speak to a group of middle schoolers effectively today, just about some tips, and it's going to be them and their parents. You know, here are some tips to have a happy, healthy, and successful life. And I'm thinking one of the things that I'm going to share, and we just hit on these 2 points. So the two themes during those moments for me is I had a situation of need or desire, right? So $200 for the boombox, $3,000 to pay and support the family. And this curveball gets thrown where I'm put into a situation where I have to figure it out. And I can do whatever I want to do to figure it out. So when my parents said, go figure it out, whether the intention was they wanted to give me the money and couldn't or didn't, I don't know. They just said, go figure it out. I'm standing in the bank parking lot. I have to figure it out. So one of the best things as a parent that you can do for your kids, in my opinion and my experience, when they come and say, hey, I need help with something. What do I do here? Figure it out. You know, some people go, well, that's tough love. You have to, I see so many parents, they coddle their kids and, they come into jiu-jitsu and they're sideline coaching the kids and they're like, stop, just let your kid go through some adversity and some pressure and some stress. They're not going to die. Let them figure it out. And people that can do that are successful in whatever they do.
Yeah, great.
But when you hand them the answer on the silver platter. So my chemistry teacher in high school, Matt Shoup, that was a hard class for me. That was one of the only classes that was really tough. It was AP chemistry. And I'd come up with this super long thing. I couldn't figure it out. And I just wanted the answer. I'm like, just give me the answer because I got to get to school so I can get to work, get the grade. He goes, no, you got to figure this out. And he would just stand there and I hated him for it. I was like, you jerk, you prick. I mean, I love the guy, but like he was being hard on me. And he said, you got to figure it out. And that was some of the most growth and most memorable learning lessons in life.
Yeah, because kids, having been a kid myself, some people probably think he's still a kid now. But we have that immediate gratification, don't we? Kids want to know the answer. We want everything immediately, and not for all, but for some, the ability to actually think beyond something, beyond that immediacy is kind of difficult. And I do think, Carol Dweck talks about the growth mindset compared to the fixed mindset, and I think for years I definitely had a fixed mindset. And what I particularly love about what you've just said is you're really engaging these young children with the ability to really dig into a problem as opposed to just accepting it. And I think that ability will set them apart in life in a multitude of different situations.
And it sucks to go through, right? So if you're a listener or viewer listening or viewing this, it's like, well, it sounds great, but it's not fun when you're going through. It's like, no, it's not fun when you have pressure and adversity and you're not getting what you want and life is hard. And that's why I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So this leadership program I have, it's called the Gentle Art of Leadership.
Okay.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the gentle art. It is, how do you effectively render somebody ineffective in physically attacking you by using leverage, timing, technique, and their own energy and their own strengths against them. So it's like a human chess game, right? So jiu-jitsu, when you're physically watching it, if you watch mixed martial arts, right, it's what happens when the fight goes to the ground. You grab somebody, you take them to the ground, and you get into a dominant position, and then you can choke them, you can joint lock them, and you've got to figure out what's going on and be 6-7 steps ahead. And the cool thing with that is it's all of this psychological and mental and emotional and physical pressure that you're under to a high degree. And if you can't figure it out and you're in danger, you tap out on your partner and they stop. So that's the universal. If you and I are practicing jiu-jitsu and put a choke on you, like, I don't know how to get out. You tap and then I stop and we bump knuckles, then we go have a beer, right? That's the other beautiful thing about the sport. But the analogy of that is like, that's life. You get into situations where there's this, and people that can lay under the pressure and just relax and think logically and not get emotionally hijacked or freak out. Like you get thrown into a pool, you can't swim and you're going under the water. What's the best thing to do? It's relax, right? So sharing all of that, being able to teach this to kids, but then also take these concepts from the jiu-jitsu mats into life, leadership, business. That's this program, and this is what I do. So this has been my life's work, and it's just really a culmination of all of the experiences I went through. That here's what's cool about failure that I just would love for your listeners, if they remember anything from this, anything, is I heard this quote. I don't know who said it or where it came from, but a successful, empowered, winning, positive person is sitting on top of a mountain of their failures and they're celebrating. And then the opposite style of person, a defeated, pessimistic, world's out to get me, defeated, losing, loser, whatever, they're laying underneath the pile of the same failures that everybody's had, just upset about it because it was everybody else's fault or whatever it was. So it's the same failure. Like we all have it. We're people, we're humans, we're imperfect. We miss the mark. That's what failure is. Some of us set bigger marks, right? So depending on the mark you set, there could be a bigger miss, but we all set a mark, we miss it. It's who we are as humans. And so how does that same thing happen, but you have these people that are winning and they're viewing it differently than the people that aren't. And what I do is I get to approach people that are the bottom of the pile and say, get out of that pile. Come here. I'll yank you out of that pile really quick. Look at this. Circle around this. Let's look at this in a different way. And they go, oh, okay. And then you have some people, they're on the top of the pile or maybe the middle of the pile. And there's in-betweens in the pile. But I want to be on top of that. And I want to put as many people on top of their failures as possible to celebrate what it's taught them. And then have them take those lessons to other people and help them do the same thing. Because like that's what you leave behind as your legacy.
Yeah. So your leadership program, maybe we can talk about that a little bit in more detail. So are you, who's that open to? Are you looking for a particular type of individual? And I love the idea that this is how it works, where you get people that, or business leaders that have, because we all experience challenging times, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think there's incredible growth with challenging times. So could they come onto your leadership program, and can they develop some of the skills that you've just spoken about and really elevate themselves and really learn how to, I guess, take those deep breaths and actually engage and process those difficult moments?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and you'll ask me this at the end of the show, but I'll jump into it now, right? To give the short answer. But if you go to my website, it's mattshoup.com. That has, everything about me, the stories, the businesses, and everything that I offer as a service, right? The experiences and adventures to Spain, the coaching program. But what I say is my target market or person that I serve, it's not necessarily always a business owner. It is a business leader. So it's somebody that either owns a business or has some kind of stake or something on the line within business. So they've worked their way up within a company. Maybe they've got an equity stake, or they know they're getting ready to help, launch or build something. So it's people that are in a high stakes business environment. And a lot of them happen to be men, as well as Christian men that have been through trauma. So if I really micro niche down the people that are attracted to my story, that's who I serve. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're not, that you couldn't benefit. So when you go to the website, you go to my Instagram or my social media, every weekday, I do a 1-minute reel called Morning Coffee with Matt, where I just share a little piece of this program. This week, I'm talking about sales. Next week, I'll talk about mindset. And then that leads into, you can download my free tools and all of these leadership tools, so I have some free stuff. Then I have, Painted Baby. I've got my books that are out.
Yeah.
And then that goes all the way up to
I'm a busy guy.
Well, I am, but it's the same. So the program, it's like anything. It starts with the free 60-second version of it, all the way down to, we're going to spend 6 days in September with a group of 10 men, and it's all men, going to Spain to hike 70 miles or 115 kilometers of the last end of the Camino de Santiago, the St. James pilgrimage. And we're going to unplug, disconnect, recenter, refocus, and revision, and then restore and rejuvenate. So that's part of that program. And we're going to do that in a very deep, meaningful way. So yes, anybody could reach out to me and participate in that, right? So if you have the desire, the time in your calendar, a lot of the men had a tough time convincing the wife, hey, I'm going to go to Spain with Matt for a week. Yeah. And then it's, that experience, it's $7,000 US plus they have to pay their way to get there. And actually it's all Americans going, but I mean, there's nothing stopping somebody from London just to get a 20 euro Ryanair flight to Madrid. And we're going to meet there on September 7th and then fly up to Santiago.
How long is it for, sorry?
We're gonna arrive. We start on the 7th, and then the adventure ends the evening of September 14th. So we hike for 6 days.
Okay.
And then we have a surprise experience in the Madrid area on September 14th. And that's all I can share about that.
Okay, lovely. It sounds phenomenal. Anything around leadership and development, I'm sort of all ears, really. And so I meant to ask you this before. Where did your affinity with Spain come from?
So
paella.
So, I love. So I'll share, maybe the statement of, do you have these moments in your life that you can think back to, or anybody listening, where somebody's suggestion that they just said a sentence to you, or they somehow nudged you, totally changed the direction of your life, right? Just something that they maybe weren't even thinking was meaningful, just totally 180 your life. So I'm in a Spanish class in college, Spanish culture class. Maria Del Mar, she's still a great friend to this day. She's my Spanish professor. And she'd turn my papers back over to me, all marked up with all the red mark. But she'd always say, oh, you have to visit my beautiful country. You should go see Spain. There's history and art. And I didn't care about that. I just loved like drinking and women and partying. So this is just the truth back then. So one day she comes up, she goes, hey, we've got like paella, sangria. They have a lot of party. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should go there. So she's nudging me. And I just literally dropped everything I was doing. I left the college painters. I left my family of origin, everything, and flew over to Spain for a study abroad experience, and lived with a family, was there 5 months. And that 5 months, my Spanish just became off the charts, 100 times more Spanish I learned in 5 months than I did in 10 years studying.
And what sort of age were you then? Sorry?
It's 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 20. Yeah. And obviously that's a very formidable time of my life as well. So I was at a time where I needed to escape the environment. So Spain, there's a little bit of that where that was an escape from the environment I was in. And I just fell in love with it. The food, the people, the culture, the history. So when I came back stateside, my initial goal is, hey, I want to find a way to get back here someday.
Yeah.
But doing business over there is a little interesting. So then I come back, I meet my wife, we fall in love. And that's been a big part of our story. Is I said, hey, eventually Spain's a big part of my life. So I was just there. I got back 3 days ago I was there with my daughter, Haley, for 3 weeks. So once a year, I take a 2-3 week vacation with either my son or my daughter. We alternate, and then the whole family goes.
Yeah.
And and then the vision's been to take other people over there to share the culture that I love. So I get to share this culture that I love, this leadership thing that I love with people that I love. and help make their story better. So that's why I exist at the end of the day. So this isn't work. It's not work for me. It's definitely work for my wife when I'm away on a podcast and she's like, where are you? It's time to come home.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Spain. And that's kind of how all of this came full circle. But literally my Spanish professor harassing me daily for 2 weeks. I'm standing here and we started a scholarship. So this coffee I'm drinking, we have a free coffee bar downstairs. People from the community come in, we make them coffee, we love on them, and it's totally free.
That's amazing.
If they decide, they can donate money, which goes to send students to Spain. We're sending our 19th student to Spain to study abroad. We're awarding 19th student next Thursday.
So you developed a scholarship?
Yeah, we have an endowment scholarship through Colorado State University. So it's a permanent scholarship. We've invested and built the base of it so much that it kicks off a guaranteed like $4,000 or $5,000 per student per year for forever, even after I go away.
Is that? I'm just thinking what that guy, the vice president, whoever came in, and he fired you. He's actually done you a favor, because look at what you've gone on to achieve and are still achieving.
I was glad he did. So looking back, it was the best, worst day of my life. Yeah. So I'd encourage your listeners, you might be going through something right now. So we talked about this, right? The kids and the pressure and the adversity and the maths, like it sucks when you're going through it, but you're being formed, you're being developed. And that suck, that just really hard time could be the best thing. So the people that were the hardest on me, the situations that were the hardest for me, that's what developed and grew me the most. So looking back, I turned my anger at him into appreciation for the fact that he let me out of something that I should have never been in anyway. And that's life, right? Something happens, you can view it. I can keep being upset and pissed off that he, or just say, you know what, thank you. And I wrote a blog about this about a year ago. Hey, thank you for this. Thank you for what I've been through. You've now allowed me to get a different perspective so I can go make people's lives better with it.
Okay. Maybe I'll get a copy of that blog and I can put it in the show notes. I think that'd be great for people.
I'll link it up to you. Yeah, for sure.
People to read. And we're getting towards the end now. A couple of questions, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about yourself during that process leading to now? Because it seems that you've done so much. You've turned $100 into a multi-million pound business. You've generated millions, and you've got. And I was listening to some of your content, a podcast that you were on, that you talked about. You don't particularly like painting. I think you might have said, and you've used some really key business skills, which I was really interested to listen to. You've used, I'll say it again, some really key business skills to make your business stand out in potentially quite a competitive market. I'm sure there are other people doing similar types of services that don't, as a whole entity, they're not able to match you. And I think that's very interesting, for not just for me to listen to, but for other people to listen to. And you obviously now you're doing your leadership program in Spain, where people get the opportunity to develop their own leadership skills and transition themselves. And also, which I didn't know, that you've got this scholarship as well, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it was one of the things I'm a big believer in, and one of the big mistakes and failures I made in business was I put profit before people. So working for me, if you worked for me the first 10 years of me owning these companies that were so successful and award-winning on paper, I was a jerk. I was a dick to work for. I was no different than the guy that fired me from the bank, because you were a cog in my wheel. You were somebody that generated me profit. And a business needs profit. So I'm not saying, what I say now is, if you focus on the profit, the people will run. When you pour into people, the profit will come. So when I really shifted my focus into developing and investing in the people, and again, I'm imperfect at it every day.
Where did that come from? Sorry, that recognition.
The long story short of it, right, is I was wondering why everybody didn't want to work for me and what their problem was, why nobody could work as hard as me. Nobody and a coach said, Matt, you're the problem. You're the common denominator. If you're saying the same thing 10 times, it's probably you. Get your head out of your ass. I mean, that's what he said to me. And he said, get your head out and realize that you need to work on your leadership. Your business will only grow to the degree that you do personally. So whatever your personal stuff is, it's going to come into your business. And that's true. And I see that every day. So when I was able to, it was about 10 years ago, just start on this leadership journey, and jujitsu's really helped me with that. Looking back is, how did I step onto the mats as a 26-year-old kid filled with ego and attitude and energy? And then a 15-year-old kid kicked the crap out of me. He was half my age, half my size. I'm like, something going on there. So I wake up every day and I'm selfish. On purpose, because you can't be selfless and help others if you have nothing to give. So I say, hey, love God, love yourself, love others, in that order. What do you mean? That's selfish. Well, you need to fill your cup. I can't build a scholarship if I've got nothing to give. I can't pour into somebody else if I haven't figured it out on my own. So I just wake up and relentlessly invest in myself so I can give that to others. And then you don't want to hold it in. Like, imagine you end your life. And what is that thing on your tombstone? I learned all these lessons and I didn't share it with Paul on his podcast. That's just like a letdown to humans across the planet in general, right?
I love what you do with lessons. When something happens, you've got a knack of being able to digest that, whatever the situation is, and do something really powerful with. And I think that is. I think me and everybody listening should be inspired by that. There's always something that we can do which can shift things dramatically. And I just thought I'd like to say that and point that out.
Thank you. Well, thanks. I went through a process called a life plan, where you spend 2 days circling around your story. It's a facilitated process, and you look at it from all angles, everything you've gone through, and you end with your purpose of why you exist in one sentence. And that purpose for me is, I exist to inspire and ignite others to own and live their life, which is their story. It's the book they're writing with excellence. So we have something in our wall when people come in to visit. It's right behind here. We call it the dash, right? What is that one thing you want to be known for that you could write on an index card and put on our wall when you die? And it's that you get one story to write. You are an author of your book. Write that story well. Don't let somebody else write it for you. You have the ability to write your story. And that's just what I get to get up and do every day. And then to get paid for it, and then to be able to support my family, and then give back to other people to help them. It's an amazing thing.
And you ignite in other people's lives and giving people ownership of their own lives, as opposed to, it's very easy just to exist in life without really taking that ownership of who we are, what we want to achieve, who we really want to be. And I can see that you're really giving people access to themselves in a really important way. What I wanted to ask you, there are two things that come to mind. One is, what advice would you have for anybody listening now that is struggling, that has come up against a perceived failure, a difficult moment? Is there something that they can do, or an idea that you might have for them?
So I'd say, if they just listen to this whole podcast, I hope they have a bunch, right? We talked about a lot of things. And I think what it comes down to is there's no lack of information or solution to whatever problem or issue that you're resolving. So if the person listening to this they're in financial dire straits, go to YouTube. There's a million resources on how to change that. So a lot of it comes down to a lot of the core issue that people come to me, I have a marketing issue or I have a money issue. It's like, no, you have a belief and a mindset issue.
Love it.
To where your mindset is wrong and you don't have a belief in yourself. You believe in other people more than yourself, or you don't believe in anybody, especially yourself. So what I would first tell them, if you listen to this podcast and you're still like, well, yeah, Matt, that's bullshit, I can't do that. So happy you could. That's your mindset issue right now. And I remember when somebody called me out on that. So if you don't think anybody right now believes in you, or is cheering for you or thinks you can do it, just know that I am. So whoever's listening to this, I love you and I believe in you and you've got this. You have to go out and you have to go get it. You can't just sit there. And if you don't like the book you're writing, you get to change it. And if you don't think you can, that's a mindset issue. You believe the world is happening to you. And it's not true. And I'm an example of that, right? The world happened to all of these other people, not even necessarily the kids that are dead or in prison. It's the decisions they made, the people they spent time with, and what they believed. They were a product of their environment. They were a seed that fell from a parent tree and was cultivated in this soil, and it grew something. And they all died, or they're all in bad places. And if you don't like the tree, you can go bring it somewhere else.
Yeah, no, Matt, thank you. They're very inspirational. And I would just like to add that you've got lots of other content and resources, books and stuff that's out there. So I think all things Matt, definitely indulge and engage with that. You can find him quite easily on the internet if you put his name and stuff in, and I'll put as much resources and content in the show notes. And Matt, finally, where is the best place for people to find you? Yeah,
it's just mattshoup.com. The website's got, it's a great way to get to know me. It's got all the podcasts I've been on, the free tools and resources, all the way down to, if you just want to hang and watch morning coffee with me, if you want to order some of my Spanish coffee to get shipped to you, or if you want to come hang out for a week in Spain, I'm going in September and May, and then, everything in between. I have, it's a very niched message for a very niched group. I'll leave with what was always frustrating for me in business is, like, I knew I needed the $20,000 seminar, but I wasn't at a place where I had those resources. So then I'm like, well, what can I do for $10 or for free or for $200? So I have within this program something for the market I serve at everything from free to scaling up from there. So there's no excuse that you can't get better if you come to my website and start this journey with me. There's no excuse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited, Matt, to talk to you in a I don't know, year, 2 years, 3 years, because I know that you will be doing some more incredible stuff. So I'm just excited to think about that. And so we have a recurring question on the podcast, Matt, and it's, if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner and they can be alive or past, who would you invite? And I'm intrigued to hear who you might have in your 3.
So I'll start with alive. Is I love Tony Robbins and just what he's done and how he inspires people. And I've always experienced him at a distance, right? Online or backseat of a seminar, but like love to just sit down with that guy and feel that energy and hear his story.
He would be. I think you could probably fly after sitting down with him, because I think he's just a unique person, unique guy.
I have a few friends that have, worked for him and spent some time, close to him, and they've said the same thing. So that's number 1. And then 2 that are dead is, first would be Jesus, right? Because I gave my life to Christ when I was 19, and that I believe that his story and what he says is true. So to be able to sit down and actually, to be one of those people that I read about in the stories of the Bible and those lessons that he learned and the things that he said, it would just be super cool to, in this day and age, sit here with him and see what he says about, it's going to be the same thing that he said back then, just now in a different time. And then the third is, and I might share 2, but I'll share one, is I want to see and talk to David right before he's going up to fight Goliath.
Okay. Yeah.
Or I want to talk to, and this isn't a specific person, but one of those soldiers that was jumping out of the boat on D-Day. So when that door dropped and they're like, we're going to be dead. We're about to be dead. We're storming the beach. There's no going back. I want to talk to him right before that door drops, because I think, people listening to this, we're circling around this theme of, we're up, like life and business, all this stuff. It can be hard. There might be a door about to drop right in front of somebody, or a Goliath standing right in front of you, and what you decide of how you take action and what you're going to believe about the outcome of that moving forward. Like those people that conquered these big things, I want to talk to people like that. So those would be 3, and I kind of threw a 4th in there. So thanks for letting me throw that one in.
Matt, it's been a huge pleasure to meet you and to talk to you and to learn from you and to be inspired from you. Again, phenomenal journey, and I'm excited about other things you're going to do, because you've got that spirit and you really radiate the power and opportunity that we all have with the right mindset. And it cannot be underestimated, the importance of having the type of mindset that you've got, because it can really help us. If we've got a vision, that mindset can really help us get there. So thank you so much for being a guest on My Perfect Failure today. Really enjoyed our discussion.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show, so please do share this episode far and wide, particularly if you know anybody that has fallen on difficult times and needs to be inspired. They will be inspired by listening to Matt, for sure. And your feedback is most welcome. Always keen to hear about things you like about the podcast, and equally things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.